Kosher Terroir. I'm Simon Jacob, your host for this episode from Jerusalem. Before we get started, I ask that wherever you are, please take a moment and pray for the safety of our soldiers and the safe return of all of our hostages. The following episode of the Kosher Terroir is an exceptional conversation and wine tasting with the extremely creative team at Agur Winery in the Judean Hills wine region of Israel. Elad Katz, the CEO, and Eyal Drori, the winemaker, along with the winery founder and winemaker emeritus, Shoki Yishov, have formed an incredible partnership, embracing the spirit of Agur's past while focusing on its truly creative potential. Elad and Eyal shared with us some of their older offerings, as well as some of their new creations. There was so much to taste and absorb that I've broken this episode into two parts. This being the first, where we were treated in their visitor center to a review of the history of the Agur Winery and a tasting of their current production run. Next week, we will visit the actual winery and taste all the newest ideas and offerings being developed for the future. If you are commuting in your car, please focus on the road and enjoy. If you are home, please choose a delicious kosher wine, sit back and listen in on this personal wine conversation among friends.
We're sitting at Agur Winery, which is celebrating its 26th vintage, I think, this year.
It's an important vintage. That's Shem Hashem. You know that? That's Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Okay.
That's a very important vintage.
It is.
It is
for us.
I know, I'm telling you.
It is because of what you said and because it's the first harvest of our new vineyard that we've planted just a minute before we joined here as partners, Eyal Drori and myself, Elad Katz. So the winery is 26. It was founded by Shoki Yishov. You met him.
Yeah.
From day one, actually, it started as a joint venture between two young winemakers, Shoki Yishov and Zev Dunya. And after 1 year that they produced one wine called Elul in 1999, they decided to split. Zev Dunya went up to Bar Giora and established his winery called Seahorse, Suson Yam. And Shoki stayed here with the name, Agur.
I didn't know you guys were that close. That's amazing.
And we're only starting with the karma stories.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
So 20-something years after, I was the CEO of Castel. I worked there for about 8.5 years, and I quit. And after a couple of months of thinking, this was the early days of COVID. I made a decision that I want to stay in our industry and do my own thing. And my first phone call was to Eyal, which I didn't really knew. I heard two things about him. First, that he is a mensch, and the second thing, that he's a highly talented professional winemaker. And we met. It took us some couple of months, maybe almost a year, until I convinced him to join me in this venture. Eyal, he presented himself, but he was back then the winemaker in Seahorse. Okay?
Oh.
And
you look how it goes, no?
Yeah. Wow.
The first thing we've done together was planting a vineyard in Givat Yeshayahu for the future winery that we will establish. And this vintage is the first one, as I said, this harvest. And the second thing was thinking about how will our winery look like. And we had a dilemma whether to establish a new one or joining something that was already here. And for all kinds of reasons, Agur was in our minds. Now, I live 3 kilometers from here, so Shoki was a good friend of mine. I would stop after work from Castel, drinking a rosé with him and, giving some tips. And I asked Shoki, I told him, Shoki, you have a place, but the energy is not what it was. I have the energy and I don't have the place. And he was willing to give space. And then I asked him whether he will accept another partner which will replace him as a winemaker. And he said, I can try, but you have to tell me who is this guy that will replace me. He said he's a young professional. His name is Eyal Drori. Maybe you've heard the name. Shoki started laughing. And apparently I didn't know that when I did the shidduch, but Eyal was Shoki's student. How would you call it?
Protege, yeah.
His first harvest vintage in life was when he was 18, and he lived here actually. So Shoki kind of taught him the work, and just after the army, Eyal went on to study in Italy. So it was a kind of weird and cosmic meeting.
Wow.
No.
So that was in 2020, October. I joined, and Eyal joined a year after me. And since then, the winery is growing. Maybe we'll talk about it a bit later. You want to present yourself then?
Yeah.
Tell me, please.
So,
this is the winemaker.
Your side.
My side of the story. Now, so as Elad said, I'm Eyal Drori. I'm the head winemaker here in Agur. And it's funny because my journey started here in 2005. I was 18 years old before, I had some time before the army, and I always had this dream to work in a winery. And so I looked, and a friend of my father is a brother of Shoki, so he did the match, and I called him, and he said, come over. And from there, for me, it was the history. Like, I fell in love in this place. I fell in love in the work, in the winemaking. And then after the army, I used to come here every harvest to help a little bit Shoki. It wasn't that serious there. And then after the army, I decided that that's what I want to do with my life. And I went to Italy. I did a bachelor and master degree there. So I lived there for 6 years in Piedmont, in north of Italy. I worked a little bit in some wineries there. It was important to me also to work in the same climate of Israel, but abroad, like not in Israel itself. And I went to Crete, the island of Crete in Greece, to do an harvest there. And well, finally, after 6 years, I decided that I'm ready to go back to Israel. And then I worked in Recanati Winery as a young winemaker for 2 years. I did a couple of harvested with Eilat as a consultant in the Golan Heights, in 2 wineries there. And then I worked as a winemaker in a Seahorse Winery for 3 years. And in the last year of Seahorse Winery, then when I met Elad, and we decided eventually we decided to do that, and as Elad said, the first thing that we did is to plant our core. I call it the core vineyard, because it's really.
What varietals?
So it's in Givat Yeshayahu,
okay,
which, in our opinion, it's one of the most interesting and the best terroir, microclimate that we have in Judean Hills.
It seems to be that a number of wineries are buying plots up in that area.
Absolutely, it's becoming a coup.
Yeah,
it's really like that. And so, for a question, we planted. So first we did some wine tasting. We invited some friends and some wine professionalists, and we start to ask questions like what we want to do, what are the right varieties for this region and for this specific plot. So we did a lot of tasting, Israeli wines against wines from all over the world, blends, varietals, and eventually we decided to go with Syrah. So we had 8 dunams, so 0.8 hectares of Syrah. We have Rosan, we have Chenin Blanc. We planted Goblet. bush
This
vines
style,
of Carignan and Grenache. And this year we had for this plot another 5 dunams of Assyrtiko. Assyrtiko is one of those varieties that I really waited for more than 10 years. I waited to bring it to Israel.
I don't know anything about it, so tell me a little bit about it.
It's a white variety that originally is coming from the island of Santorini, which is a very extreme climate. It's hot, even hotter than here in Israel. Windy. The winds are really
is Santorini
windy.
where they have the circle ones?
Yeah.
It's like
It's like a nest.
Like
They
a-
grow the vine like in a
Goblets.
nest.
No,
It's
it's,
not
a
a goblet.
circle.
It's a nest.
It's very specific for Santorini.
Like
You
what
can
we
find
say,
it.
geffen srucha, you know,
Right.
geffen on the ground,
Right.
but
I've
it's
seen that.
nestled, like
Yeah, it's like a bird's nest.
Wow.
It looks like a band.
Very
It's
cool.
just to protect it from the
protect
winds.
the grapes.
So it's an upcoming star, the Assyrtiko in the Santorini region in the last 10 years. But it is not the reason why I wanted to plant Assyrtiko, because it's coming from an island with basaltic soil, so it's not necessarily the same conditions. But the thing that convinced me to do that is that I tasted an Assyrtiko, one of the best Assyrtiko that I ever tasted, that coming from Peloponnese, which is in the mainland in Greece, which is really similar to Judean Hills. Limestone, terra rossa. So this is for me was the
What sort of characteristics did it have?
well, it's in Santorini. It's different. It's more mineral and lemony zest and this kind of aromas. But when I tasted the one that comes from the mainland, it's something that is it's always mineral. It's always with a lemon or citrusy aromas, but also have a very round and balanced body with a good acidity, high acidity, which gives him the longevity to be aged as well. And I think that is, well, I look at it as a blender for me right now. I want to add to our wines the minerality, the sharpness, and the limestone notes that we have here. So this is the reason.
I'm looking forward.
I think that in the vineyards, the work we've done, we've planted more plots since then in the Eyal, up on the Eyal Valley, on the hills that surrounds it. And we did a long research of tastings, very open-minded about the question. And the question was, what is suitable to here? Not just what is fashionable now, because, you know, fashions and trends change.
Yeah.
And we are already feeling comfortable enough, confident enough as people and as a region to really do what's best for plant what's best for the wine. So we really asked the question very openly, very open-minded, and in that sense we're just following Shoki, which was a pioneer in more or less everything he done. He was always a crazy redhead. So in 2013 he bought the grapes from a plot of Ozzoletta, which is also a very unique variety coming from the northern parts of Italy. And then in 2010, before that, he started producing a wine he called Layam, to the sea, because he was a bit maybe bored from the Bordeaux blends that were very, very popular back then. And he thought we should look to the Mediterranean. This is where we are from. And started playing with Syrah and Mourvèdre. And we just took some inspiration from that, because Eyal blends, and we'll talk about the wines in a minute, are super complex. So we usually try to simplify to the customer and say a Syrah-based blend. But behind that, in the kitchen, is being blending like 7 varieties, more or less in every blend, because we're trying to say something about the region, not about the variety. The varieties are instruments for us, the varietals.
It's a good philosophy.
Well, there's a lot of inspirations from a lot of different places in the Mediterranean countries, let's say like that. And what I had most like what I'm feeling the most correct for our situation is that, as Elad said, the varietals are tools for us to extract out from this land the characteristics of this region and our wines. And this philosophy I met in Portugal, first in Portugal, and also in, the oldest region in the world, Châteauneuf du Pape, is exactly like that. So Châteauneuf, we have 15 different varieties. It's true that normally it's based on one variety, which is Grenache, but it's always a blend. And so also in Portugal and also in Spain now we start to see some things, and in France in general. This philosophy works and it suits for us.
I just want to add that our vision or motivation is that our wines will be recognized as Judean Hills blends and not a Bordeaux blend, a Rhone blend, even other Mediterranean blends. So really this is another reason why blending open-minded, because we are in the process, like the Israeli cuisine is going through, we are in the process of creating a unique identity for Israeli wines.
Shoki Drori also, specifically, people always call Rhone blends Mediterranean blends. And he basically fights that. He said, they're still European blends. They're not they're not Mediterranean. There's a lot more to Mediterranean than what's happening in the Rhone.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. I love that this is the direction that Israel is going in order to really make wines that are exceptional specifically for this area.
Okay, Eyal is a winemaker that gets bored very easily. He also produces vermouths. He likes his beer, he likes his whiskey, he likes a lot of... He ferments more or less whatever. Just be careful, he might ferment you. So he does mitzpetel and grapefruit, petnat, all kinds of weird stuff. So in his wines, he has to maintain this interest, something that we call it tension. Newly bottled, huh?
Right, this is brand new.
It's brand new.
So this is what? Tell me before we...
So this is our young wine. We do two kinds of white wines. We have the young cereal that it's based on Sauvignon Blanc. Now
it's called Agur Blanc first.
It's called Agur Blanc, yeah.
2023.
It's the new vintage. It's just been bottled.
Brand new.
Yeah.
Great.
A Sauvignon Blanc based blend. That's the short line.
Right.
Yeah, this is short line. No, but if we can back a little bit for the philosophy, when we choose to do whites here in Judean Hills, I wanted to understand fully which variety has the biggest potential for what kind of wines. This is the young wine, and is process, the vinification process is not a classic of young white wine. It's not just stand still. It's half of the wine always fermenting old barrels, old barrique, and I keep it on the lees for 4 months and do some bétonnage, especially for the Sauvignon Blanc. I'm trying to get from the Sauvignon Blanc not the fruity characteristics that are the tropical fruits, not the New World style. I try to extract out the minerality, the herbal notes, these kinds of Sauvignon Blanc that I truly believe that has the big potential here in Judean Hills. So this is the case this is why I choose Sauvignon Blanc for this wine. And as we said, it's a blend.
And what about the others?
Yeah, so it's 60% Sauvignon Blanc. And then the others, we have Chardonnay, Roussanne, Viognier, and a little bit of Grenache Blanc and Chenin Blanc.
Okay.
I think that we call it the Young Wines series. There's a trick. It's about the how do you say, like the Mechane Meshutaf, the
common denominator.
Yeah, is that we try to look for fruit, flowers, and some minerals. That's the three things in the series, and it's about being accessible. We try to price it quite reasonably. But then the trick is that because of Eyal's ambition, it's not a simple wine. So you can enjoy this like fun in the sun, no problem. People are drinking it here on the grass and enjoying it. But then if you are a wine connoisseur, you might dive deep and find all kinds of things that are not usually in a young wine.
Yeah.
And in the rosé, it's even more dominant.
This is almost got like a Fumé Blanc, kind of a smokiness in the top of it.
This is one of the inspirations coming from, not necessarily from the region or from the style, but just to understand the right techniques in order to have these characteristics from Sauvignon Blanc.
Wow. I especially, I love it's also beautifully balanced right across the whole palate. It's just lovely. It's great.
No, it's
It's like really cool.
I want you to stay with it for a while. We have two kind of glasses now. This is for the Layam series. This one.
I just want to say something about Layam. So in 2010, Shoki, he back then had two partners, cousins from America. They thought they can manage him from there. They were wrong. But in 2010, they found out that Shoki decided alone to produce a new wine in the winery called Layam. It was a red blend, kind of a field blend of Syrah and Mourvèdre, 50-50. And they said, why are producing a Syrah blend? Who buys Syrah? It's not...
How long ago was this?
It was 2010.
2010.
And this was the thing that made them break apart the partnership. So he was forced to pay for the grapes and barrels of Layam, and they split. And when we came to the winery and tasted with Shoki what he was doing in 2020, we thought Layam was the best thing he ever done here. He was like, again, pioneering before his time.
In those days, if you're focused on the United States as a market, nobody was buying Syrah. It was like, if you put the name Syrah on it, nobody would buy it. And I know people were strongly recommending Israeli wineries to stop with the Syrah because they couldn't sell it. Yeah. And they needed cabs, and that's what they needed.
Yeah.
And it's so it's amazing that you've broken through, and now all of a sudden people are very interested in Syrahs, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I wish there was a way to change the names on some of the bottles to just say, like we tasted a Merlot yesterday, that if they called it a cab, people would buy it. People would buy it. It was just because of the name. So
notice that we don't have the variety names in the front label. Just the wines have names. This is Layam Blanc, Layam, which Eyal only started producing 2 years ago. So this is the second vintage. This is Layam Blanc 2022. 21 was the first. It was actually the only wine we've added to Agur's portfolio when we joined. So Eyal, we look at the portfolio, and Eyal said, I want, Layam is such a great idea. I want to elaborate it into white.
Yeah. And then in this case, the variety that I choose to be the most dominant is the Rosanne, which is one of my favorite. Rosanne is a variety. It's true that it's coming from the Rhone Valley, but when we tasted a lot, we tasted also from Israel, but I also tasted from Australia and the States. A lot of Rosannes. And it's a versatile variety. It has this characteristic that can be very like stone fruit is always towards apple, something more fresh, like green apple, Granny Smith, and the minerality is always there. And from the other hand, it's a rich. It gives you a rich wine. So we need to be careful. If you don't in a warm country like us, we need to be careful to not have the style that I not want from the Roussanne. For example, the Châteauneuf white, which is mainly Roussanne. It's very heavy. It's not kind of white wines that I want to do. I want to have this lightness. Freshness and lightness, but complexity. So it's Roussanne based. Then we have Chardonnay, Viognier, and a little bit of Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc as well. So each variety is part in this blend. Sauvignon Blanc, for example, gives us some clues for fruits, but mainly freshness, good acidity, something harsh even.
How much Chardonnay is in this?
This is 22. It's about 10%.
Yeah.
The Chardonnay here is giving the Roussanne some help with the structure. Gives us a lot of also the minerality notes, but also the bétonnage method that I'm doing it. It's 10 months in barrels. The Chardonnay gives this richness and yeasty characteristic that I like it.
It's not quite buttery,
no.
but it's lovely. It's got a real wraps around your mouth. It's also wonderful. It's great. I love it.
So it's like a mirror of the Agur Blanc, Layam Blanc, variety-wise. But then winemaking was a totally different style, and we thought that Agur should try and produce a high-end white, which will again show the greatness of our terroir. And it's only the second vintage, so we're humble about it. It's only a start. And Layam is for us is the series. The two wines are the most important wines of the winery. They're not the flagship. There's a wine upper class than them, but they kind of define the style and direction. They're the compass. And they're about complexity and silkiness. Maybe this is what you're feeling. Silkiness.
It's also it fills your mouth. It's not like so. It's not so light and springy that you sit outside and you drink it and you just drink it almost like water. This has got some body to it.
It should give you this feeling that we're talking about a serious wine.
It is.
But for the other hand, it doesn't need to be heavy. Like
it's not.
It's rich. It's complex.
Not too buttery.
Not
balanced.
This is an oak for how long?
10 months.
10 months. Okay.
Naturally, part of it is new oak. I also the oak, the blends of different barrels is so critical for these kinds of wines. I'm using a French oak, but I'm using also acacia.
Acacia.
Acacia, yeah.
That was another thing that when Elad told me, he told me this at the festival when I met him, that right at the top and the bottom you do acacia. And I was like, no one else is doing it like this.
It's a hybrid barrel. Yeah.
It's
the top and the bottom are from acacia, and the staves are oak. And then you get this crazy minty eucalyptus notes.
I was going to say, it's almost eucalyptus.
The acacia is so going well with Roussanne. It's just amazing. This combination gives the Roussanne, it's uplifting it.
Yeah. This is, I think, the best Roussanne I've ever tasted.
No, this is
just so that you know.
By the way, it's a nice phrase. So Shoki is a veteran of the Yom Kippur War. Okay, and on the bottle of the first Layam, he decided to write something from Eyov. A very interesting pasuk, talking about how God comes out of the sea very dramatically, and then he's wrapped in fog. Chatul ba'arafel. So it's a sentence about the sea, about layam, and but it's something about his PTSD, that he's wrapped in fog. That's part of his feelings some mornings. And we've decided to take this idea of, instead of writing on the back labels, fermented, all that technical stuff, we wrote just varieties and a phrase as inspiration. But on the layam blanc, we chose something about this wine, actually. בכוחו רגע הים ובתבונתו מחץ רהב. Which for us means that, איך אומרים איפוק?
Restraint.
Restraint is power, and not, and if you are really strong, you are restrained. Showing off.
There's a lot of people who should know that verse, especially these days.
Yeah.
Especially these days.
Especially.
Baruch Hashem.
What we really, really want to do, and I say we, not just me as Agur's winemaker, in general, a group of new winemakers or young winemakers or ambitious ones, we start to understand the potential that we have here in Judean Hills, and we want to give that expression out with the wines in the highest level that we truly believe that we can in terms of international wines. So we said with the Sauvignon Blanc, and really, I really believe in this. There in some very specific plots in microclimates, you can have here perfect conditions for this variety, even though that we are not in the Loire Valley. Let's say when we sit in the winery, I'm doing a lot of different fermentation, different yeasts, different techniques, in order to get that. It's hard work, but eventually we're learning, and the idea is to study the right techniques to each wine, and eventually in in 5 years or 10 years, because it takes time, it's wine business, even generations, we will be on the right track, and then everything is more clear. And I believe that I would say, damn, why didn't that before? This is the process.
It is a process, and it requires an exceptional amount of documentation. It's just every single
He's laughing, but you know why.
I know, but you can't. This is not making wine seat of the pants. You can tell this when you taste it. It's got a fullness about each of the wines that they're not just light wines that you've put together. This is really something that it's like a puzzle that you've put the pieces together in a way that it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Okay, this is the rosé.
You can call him a winemaker or a pixel manager. I say there's a lot of pixels here. A lot of pixels. Yeah.
This is the rosé.
Yeah.
The new vintage, 23. So the rosé is also had his own unique methods. And to be fair, Shoki started it in 2006. He was
again before anyone was
any
boutique winery was producing rosé.
One of the first, in Israel to produce a high quality rosé, because we had some rosé and bulk wine style rosé for the big wineries, but a high quality. It was in 2006. It was crazy to think about it. Nowadays, it seems so obvious, no? But so he did it in his own way. Did it. The inspiration comes from Bandol area, but he did the rosé in barrels, in old barrels.
Okay.
The fermentation, and he stayed on the lees for a couple of months until he had this reductive characteristics notes that comes from the lees, and it was a crazy rosé. For us.
Rustic.
Too rustic. and I really wanted to delicate things there and to elevate it to something serious as well, but more elegant and more gastronomic. And I grew on rosé in my house, and especially my father was born in France, so he introduced me the rosé, of the provincial rosé or the rosé in general, as a good wine, not just as a bad wine that we back then we used to have here in Israel. So I had this purpose on my mind, and eventually I decided to keep this technique of fermenting barrels and stay on the lees. So it's 80% of the wine of the 4 varieties. It's a blend, fermented by each variety by itself in barrels, in old barrels, and then stayed on the lees for 4 months until, it depends on the variety, but until I have these reductive notes, and then I do the rack. I'm racking it and do the blend, and then we have eventually the 80% of the lees section, and then we have the 20% of the standstill, just to give it a little bit more sharpness. And
So it's Mourvèdre, Grenache, Cabernet Franc,
and Marcelin.
Cool. Barrels are 225 liters and up to 500 liters. And it's a homage to Shoki in some way, but then Eyal's style, and it's also a saying, because usually you I think the world of rosé has gone flat. Everyone's producing more or less the same fruity juice with acid and no substance. So you already see Eyal likes his wines present. But then it's a rosé. You have to be able to drink it. It's not. So he kept the style of Shoki, but gave it a polish. We call it an uplift.
Yeah.
Was there an impact from the war?
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, I know.
First of all, I was recruited on the 7th for about 50 days. I was in Gaza. Our mashgiach, Hanan, which is originally from Long Island, I think, right? Orev Golani, he's still up in the north. So we had to recruit more workers.
New workers. This was
he's also, isn't he also assistant winemaker or something?
He's an assistant. Eyal recruited him from another winery that he was working as a consultant. He's a very talented guy, very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And he's still up north in Miluim. Liel, our office manager, was recruited. So half of the staff wasn't here. Eyal was here for almost 2 months alone with the worker. Alone. I always joke about him. I left my espresso cup on the bar on the 6th. And when I came back somewhere end of November, it was still there. Because he's a winemaker. He's into winemaking, you know? And the grass was like this high, and we didn't sell anything in Israel. So October and November were quite hard, and then we came back and we worked hard. I think we're okay now. So, but from our balcony, you can really, it's safe area, but we hear everything.
Yeah,
it's like a balcony to the sea, to the Mediterranean. So we're out with a finger on the pulse, as we say. We hear everything. But we were, we finished all of our plots harvesting before.
Yeah.
We were supposed to receive another one from the north because the yield was very low on 2023, and that plot was never harvested.
Yeah.
So we've our Korem, our vine grower, is a high rank official in the military reserve. So he's still there. I just met him a couple of days ago in the vineyard. So we are helping him now to grow the vineyard, to prune and all kinds of stuff. But we're okay. Luckily, the war was just, the minute the harvest was done and when the vines go into dormant. So we're waking up now, like the vines.
everybody said it, and I agree. It's probably is the best rosé that we
No, this is like
that we did.
it's not 22 even. It's just
And it wasn't a easy year. We had a lot of heat waves. Actually, it was for me it was like a one big long heat wave that started in late of July, and so it was a complicated year. But eventually we have a very surprisingly very good quality, very high quality. This is where you see the quality of also for your growers or the plots. And in this case, you can feel it. And the 23 vintage is amazing.
This is like really fantastic. It's a real rosé. No, it's not excessive. It's clean. And the tastes are exactly what you want them to be. And it's just beautiful. Really, really beautiful rosé. Amazing. Wow. I love that you're expressing this from here, and this is what you're getting. And I just, it's just amazing. It's just great. It's really great. And I'm most happy that you make this kosher. It's just amazing. Please, thank you very much for all of the efforts.
When Eyal was here as an 18-year-old student, the winery wasn't kosher. That was 2005. It became kosher 2006.
Yes.
So it was the last year before. Yeah, but he came back home. I live here, so it's my home as well. And this is an expression for us. For me, I don't know about Eyal, of wet limestone after the rain up in the hills here. That's exactly the smell I feel. It's wet limestone, and it's a rosé, so you would expect maybe strawberries or kind of that stuff, and we like it like this: mineral, a bit fatness, substance.
It's not strawberries, and it's not cotton candy type of stuff, and it's just.
No. And when we talked about the portfolio when we joined, so I said to Eyal, my job is to keep up the sales, and I said, look, this rosé, it's not for everyone. It's not an everyone rosé, but actually we liked it. So we said, okay, we're not a big producer. We don't have to be loved by everyone. Yeah, we just have to produce our own thing. And if it's good, people will come. And it's kind of an educative approach, not with arrogance, of course, and we find people surprised that a rosé that looks very, it's kind of a pale, it has a nice color, it looks like an easy drinking rosé. That's the trick I was talking about earlier. And then you get something which is, it's a serious rosé.
Start with the reds.
Yeah.
So we start with the young red wine, Kesem.
Mm-hmm.
So Kesem, I think Kesem is the wine that we change. It's the biggest change that we did for wine when we joined. It always was a wine of the portfolio of Shoki, but the model was like a Bordeaux mentioned. You had a young Bordeaux, which was 1.5 years in barrels, and it's more soft and it's more fruity. And then you have the special reserve with the Grand Vin, or etc. So I want to change it. The problem with hot climates when you work with Bordeaux varieties that if you want to low a little bit the percentage of the alcohol and to pick earlier, you get this green notes.
Green taste. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make sense. And I wanted to put inside more those varieties that doesn't have these green characteristics that are suitable perfectly for our climate and this region. And the first one that we had is Carignan, but we had also Marcellan and Petit Syrah to the blend. So it's it's a cross between Bordeaux varieties and Mediterranean varieties. Let's say like that.
It's a unique blend, actually. We haven't seen anything like that before.
It's Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. Like Kesem was originally for Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot.
CSM.
Oh, that's the acronym.
Yeah, that's the acronym of Kesem. That's why Shoki called it like that. But so we keep the name, and we kept also these two varieties. So it's a blend based on Merlot and Cabernet, and then Carignan, and Syrah, Petit Syrah, Marcellan, and also a little bit of Cabernet Franc.
And Garnacha Tintorera.
And the last one is Garnacha Tintorera. Garnacha Tintorera, it's Alicante Boucher in France. It's a variety that I felt in love.
Joker.
It's a joker, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is.
I fell in love in this variety.
Unbelievable color.
Yeah.
Because the color is even in the meat of the grapes.
Yes, but it's also when it's when you taste some wines that's coming from an old vineyard, it's a very unique variety. It has something that reminds me sumac, one of the spices, local spices we have here, but also like cherry, black cherries. It's a unique variety, and it's a perfect blender for the Kesem. It gives us this juiciness for a young wine. So all in all, it's 6 months in barrels. That's it.
Barrels and clay amphoras.
And clay pots, yeah. And amphora.
Also, אתה רוצה להגיד על הקרבונית וזה?
כן.
It's carbonic maceration.
Well, it's 7 varieties blend. Each variety has its own unique method to eventually, you said puzzle, to create this puzzle in the right way that I want. And the final picture, it should be a juicy summer red wine. Juicy and fresh. And one of the techniques that I have, the tools that I have as a winemaker, one of them is to do carbonic maceration, which it's not fit for each variety. It's specifically, I love to do it with Marcellan and Petit Syrah. So you get the red fruits. You don't have the tannin structure that can be very, very harsh from Petit Syrah and Marcellan. But you also have a round and structure and a very soft tannins in the end. And eventually that's what brings this wine the freshness, also from the stems.
I try to explain to people the difference between a wine, which we'll talk when we get to the last one, which I love the name of your last one that we'll have. We're trying to explain like not everything is for aging, and a lot of things are just need now, especially in Israel, because in Hebrew, we don't say wine ages. Israelis always say yan mishtabeach, which is wine improves. Obviously, isn't always true. So when I've seen people at festivals and you've been there, or if I poured this for people at my house, I was like, okay, you don't need to hear the theory. Just try this. You understand what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah. This is good now. You don't need to age. You don't have to wait with this.
Carpe diem. Seize the moment. Yes, now.
Carpe diem. This wine for me is the full picture of Judean Hills, Judea, the region, the full picture, because you can get the Bordeaux varieties from our best plots, by the way. It's also the same fruit going also for the special reserve. But still, a part of it, I'm bringing it here to the Kesem because we are a boutique winery. We can afford us to do the entry-level wine as a cheap wine. It's a mistake. It needs to be as serious as your best wine. And this is what we're doing here. So the Bordeaux variety is coming from our best plots in Mata village, is 700 meters above sea level, the high altitude. And then the Mediterranean variety is coming from the Rafat, the valleys, and from Givat Yeshayahu as well. So this combination for me represents what I called the 3 sub-areas of Judea region. You have the Judean Hills, the mountains, you have the valleys, the foothills, and you have the what I call it's Givat Yeshayahu mainly, but what I call the valleys, like in Arab valleys, like it's a stream, old streams, that is very unique, specific microclimate there.
So Givat Yeshayahu has its own creeks? it's just like 500 meters from Elad Valley, but it's a different terroir. Elad Valley is wider, hotter, soils are more chalky.
More limestone and
whiter.
chalk. Yeah, whiter.
Limestone and chalk, and Givat Yeshayahu, rivers, creeks are very different.
Is it a rosa soil? What's the soil?
The Terra Rossa mainly is coming from it's in the mountains. Because of the evolution there, but Givat Yeshayahu, it's because it's a creek, it's a stream. It was a stream, so you have more deep, more clay soil.
Got it.
But you have also it's like it's kind of a gravel. Like you have all the small rocks that's coming from
Down the stream.
and so you have all in all you have a good structure for the soil, but then it's quite area because you have the rocks inside, and it's really completely different soil from the one that we have in the mountains.
So when we've planted the vineyard, you can't see it on radio, but we dug deep down to see how. So it's Terra Rossa up on the surface, but when you go like a meter down, you see this. It's like pebbles.
Yeah.
So
Chalukei Nachal.
It's like the river.
Yeah, it's like river. What you call it? Yeah.
it's Chalukei Nachal, is what we call it. So this is about like 60 centimeters deep. So it means that there's awesome drainage of the soil. You see Terra Rossa as something that can be a bit muddy, but down there there's a river. So the water just drains down.
So like ideally what you want when you plant plants in a pot, the bottom of it you want to be exactly like that.
It's like a מסננת.
Sieve.
Yeah, a sieve.
This is what it is. So we're waiting for the vineyards to arrive to that level of
How old are they now?
4, 3.5.
Okay.
They will yield now.
Not that Certica though. That was from July. Certica is not there yet.
That
was
will
in
be,
July.
So Kesem, young wine, but young doesn't mean simple. Young can be complex. It has to be accessible.
None of these wines have been simple, and every one of them has been balanced.
So I have a technical-ish question, because he said that he said that like he thinks in Judea, and I know you're part of the appellation, right? Yeah. Right. So in the appellation, they have the 2 sub-appellations of the hills and the foothills. Now I'm not surprising that this is why we're here, something like this. But like you're saying, the 3rd level, in terms of the appellation, how would you
Next step,
This is going to be the next step, probably.
You think it'll be another sub, or you think you'll just have to put it in?
I don't know. I will fight for it though.
I think it can take 50 years, but
the appellation itself took forever to get.
So you get you get Bourgogne, and then you get Côte d'Or and Côte de Nuit, and then you get the village. We'll be there at some point in time. We'll be there.
I'm sure that Givat Yeshayahu will be a different.
We're in a much premature question. Okay. We're doing.
I'm sure that it will be as well, because so many people are counting on those vineyards.
Yep.
So
that's true.
We're still dealing with the question of whether we should produce a Judean Foothills blend and a Judean Hills blend, or use the advantage of both. And I guess this also will be solved in time, with time,
this is what year?
This is Layam 22, also bottled a couple of months ago. Just before the harvest. So Layam was here before us again. It was back then 50-50 Syrah Mourvèdre. Eyal took the blend, mixed it all up.
I also love that on the bottle it just says, all the other ones you write the varietals. Here it just says Syrah blend.
It was too long. It's too long. Only in the States we write down, the percentages and varietals. In Hebrew we just write Syrah-based blend מבוסס Syrah. 14 months of barrel aging.
Old, mostly old barrels. Talking about maybe 4% of new oak. That's it. Mainly Syrah. When I say mainly Syrah, it's 60%, 55%. Yeah, but it's 8 varieties blends. You can look at that like as the wines that they do in Chardonnay or in Portugal. But the idea is to have a red wine that is complex, deep, but light. So it's not like the Kesem. The Kesem is juicy and fresh and light and fruity, etc. And this one is something more deep, more elegant, more serious wine.
You're looking at this to age over time?
Yeah, well, because it's kind of a new blend for us, so we don't know yet, but yeah, it's going to be lovely after 5 or 6 or 7 years. Even.
I think we should. Okay, so we had a worker here on Friday, the shift manager on the visitor center, and he asked, "What is the aging ability of Layam?" So we said, frankly, we don't. The new Layam, we don't know, but let's open a 2010 Layam of Shoki's, and it's gorgeous. It's not the same wine. It's a different approach or style, but it can age for sure. These vineyards can age, and I think we should open a bottle.
I know I'm not being fair to ask. The reason I'm asking is because all the wines that we've had so far have been not only approachable, but I think exceptional. This is the only one that I kind of feel like
Needs some time.
it needs time.
It needs time.
It needs time. And that's okay. This is supposed to be the wine that does that.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's why I'm asking you what the expectation is for it.
So if we're looking
all.
from point of from mathematical point of view,
Yeah.
you imagine the graph. No?
Yes.
I see that is going to evolve in the next 3 years, but still remains his fruity characteristics and notes. And then after 5, 6, 7 years, you would start to see the tertiary aromas that's coming mainly from the Rhone varieties here, which we didn't say, but it's a Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, Carignan, Petit Syrah, a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, Grenache Tintorera, and Marcellan. So this is the blend. Now, when it will age eventually after 7 years, I think in maybe even less, you will start to have the tertiary aromas for the Rhone varieties, as I know, Grenache and Mourvèdre especially, that start to be something that is more spicy and a little bit of tobacco and something more earthy.
Some leather, maybe.
And leather, yeah.
Yeah,
and that's and it's not in the bad way. It's going to be very balanced because you will still have some fruit notes, especially from Petit Syrah. When it ages, it still remains its own, like it's the berries, blackberries, fruits, and the Syrah as well. So it will be a nice combination between those two. And then, after 10 years or even more, we're going to open now the, I don't know, 2000, one of the aged Layam. You'll see that when it's old, it's very, very, it's silky, especially in the mouthfeel, and it has this leathery, earthy kind of aromas.
I have another idea actually, but you choose.
You tell me.
So we're now selling 2021 in the States. And I just came back from New York and Baltimore. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a nice surprise to taste again the 21 because we forgot about it a year ago, more or less. So we can taste that or something from the old period of Agur.
I'd love to taste the 21.
Okay. 21?
She's bringing it. Just the question is, maybe we'll move on to special Shmira Miyuchedet and then.
Okay.
What?
What do you have that's special?
I just want to point out real quick that I love the name of this. Because in English it's special reserve, which is a standard. But in Hebrew, Shmira Miyuchedet, which means it's like special protection. Because this is like, I feel like a wine that like put it in a special place, put it away, take care of it properly, and then you'll be rewarded.
Special care.
Yeah, special care.
It's a special care.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you say to native Hebrew speakers, Shmira Miyuchedet, they're confused. What do you mean? But sometimes, because you lose the literal meaning of stuff, that you say special reserve. I'm sure that English native speakers don't really,
Even think about it.
Yeah, they don't stop to think of it.
What does special reserve mean?
What does it mean? So when you say Shmira Miyuchedet, say, what do you mean? So said, you're a Hebrew speaker. Shmira Miyuchedet, shomer al ze b'miyuchad. We keep it, we give it special care. And then they say, now I understand. It's something that you take special care of. See the label.
Yes.
And this is our view. The place, the sense of place is very important in our experience. This is before wine, because the wine can change. Eyal's has been changing the blend each year now, like in evolution, small steps, but the place stays the same.
Yeah. So.
So this is
Shmira Miyuchedet.
So this is Shmira Miyuchedet, a special reserve 21 vintage. It's the first vintage that we did as the new group, the new team. I still worked in Sears Winery, but I did like as a remote winemaker, you can say, like something like that. I worked there, and then after I finished the day, I went here to taste the wines and to give them some,
I was like Batman. He was appearing only on night.
Yeah, it was it was difficult, but it was exciting because it's the our first vintage. It's coming mainly from Matav village, from the high altitude plot that we have. So 21 is mainly Bordeaux varieties. I add a little bit of Petit Syrah and Syrah. It's about almost 2 years in barrels. 25% new oak, and it's 21 was quite a balanced, hot but balanced vintage. So it's we have fuller body, deep, good tannin structure, good acidity. That's why I said it, because it's hot but balanced here. And this is very important, especially for the Bordeaux varieties that's coming from Mata. The high altitude really help to keep this acidity. You can feel it. It's more Cabernet than Merlot, this vintage. And I think it's just now it start to open up. No, we just opened the barrel, but it's what I love in the Judean Hills region with the Bordeaux varieties. You have something that is fresh. You have the fruits, but you have this. It's not green notes that like the pyrazine, like the pepper notes. It's like mint and eucalyptus,
sage, thyme, all
sage,
the local herbs.
all the local herbs,
thyme,
exactly. So it's a very unique and classic characteristics of Judean Hills, which I really love. Combine that with a good oak, the best barrels come for this one. You have a complete picture, in my opinion. And it's 21, it's so young.
I know.
I want to point out the quote you put on this one. A line from Yehuda Amichai, where it says, V'yesh ahavot she'i efshar le'avir otam l'makom acher. Which loosely translates to, there are loves that you can't move to anywhere else. So that's also when we spoke earlier, I was like, technically a Bordeaux blend, but it's a
But
Judean
it's
Hills
not.
blend.
It's
a Judean
Judean
Hills
Hills.
blend.
That's what I said.
When we've partnered up, we asked each partner to write down how he sees this partnership, because we're different people, different ages, different state in life, and we all failed to write down. So Shoki brought up a picture, and I brought this poem, which I really like, and we all agreed that it's a good description of our thoughts and emotions, and it actually speaks about a valley. We live in a valley, and how this valley is a chance to restart without dying. Okay, not in a morbidic way, but really restarting without burying the past. I think that's the most important phrase. And then the second important phrase is what we wrote on the bottle, which is a distillation of what winemaking is. Making love in a very specific place that you can move only when it's bottled. You can't make this wine anywhere else. You can make great, excellent wines in the Golan or I don't know, wherever, in France. But this love is very specific to a place.
I love your honesty. I love your honesty. It's important. It's not... you try to express things. You can't always express them the way you want to express them, but it's amazing because you've got a person who created the winery to begin with, who is a winemaker who put his love and his efforts into it. And it's difficult to move on. It's especially difficult to take the next step. And a lot of wineries say, oh yes, we've got our children and what have you, but it's not the same thing at all. It depends how passionate you are about it. So you guys seem to be exceedingly passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's great that you're honoring Shoki's contribution in the beginning. And it's also really special that he's honoring your coming in and
Absolutely.
making changes and doing stuff that you want. I'll be honest with you. There are very few older people, and I rank myself as one of them. There are very few older people who can do that.
Oh yeah, he's
Can
exceptional.
open their heads enough to be able to experience new things without saying, I did that. No, you don't want to do that. It's a really exceptional quality. So you picked a good partner.
Yeah.
You picked a good partner. Yeah. So
as someone, like I said, I read literally every article written about you. I thought it was interesting when you started the partnership how it was covered. And someone asked Shoki, how does it feel that you're giving up control a little bit? And he said, I'm translating loosely from Hebrew.
yeah.
But he said, I'm not giving up anything. I'm getting so much.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I was like, that's... like he's like Simon saying, like it's... I mean, you already answered this, so I didn't have to ask this, but one of my questions I wanted to ask you when Simon asked me if this could happen was I was curious to see what you had to say in terms of like what Shoki's approach was versus what your approach is, but you've already answered. I feel like, I guess loosely, you're doing similar things, just in different time periods. Like he did one sort of, or revolution is the right word, but he was ahead of his time in a way. And you're ahead of your time in a different way. So that you've already answered, I'm not going to ask that, but I was very moved when I met the two of you. I'm not going to pretend to say that we're like best friends or anything. It would be nice if you were. No, okay. but I just thought he put it so beautifully, where he was just like almost like it was a stupid question, like that he's giving up almost control. Like no, and then he also said in that same interview, and he said, "And when I die, they'll have the winery." Like it's very cool to me that like you're like continuing it. I also thought I was really cool when I read about how like how you like started here in a way, your journey. So I read that you say you call him like your second father or like Agur or something like that. No pressure. I mean, that's just what it said in the hour. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
But I think it's very cool that it's like I was saying, so earlier I said I think part of why I like your winery so much is because it has very much of the Israeli chutzpah. So you talked again not the first one I had of yours, but like the first Shoki one I had was the Osereta. The Kalka. So I was like, no one else is. I know you guys didn't actually plant those. I know you bought it from someone else, and then he tore them up as they don't have it anymore. Yeah, so Tzora planted them, but he didn't want to use them. So Shoki made 3 vintages of it. So I'm saying the same chutzpah that he had to do that. You guys, and it's so clear to me how much you guys are a continuation of what like his style, I guess, in a way. Even if it's your own style, obviously, but it's a continuation.
Yeah, I think it's a continuation for him, and we were hugging it, the opportunity, and seeing what we can do within.
No.
Okay.
I just want to say something about the cheese that you just tasted. Mm-hmm. So it was made by our friend Dror from Kibbutz Be'eri. He's still kidnapped.
Wow.
So Kibbutz Be'eri, their dairies, I've been working with them since ever. I'm at least 10 years, from Castel days to Agur, and also we have a small family winery in the Arava of my wife's family, Moa. So we all work with Be'eri. And Dror was the head cheesemaker with Dagan, his partner. And just 2 weeks before the 7th of October, he came to take some wine lees because he's been producing cheese with our wines.
Lees.
Yep.
With the lees.
With the lees.
Yes,
Cool.
the Carignan lees.
Yeah, using it for the for the.
They color it, and also they put like layers inside of the cheese. He was kidnapped on the 7th with 2 of his children. They were released, and he's still there. And in the first days, when I was still serving, November or end of October, I actually went into Be'eri to take some cheese and brought it into the winery, and the feeling was like, this is how we felt, like the last cheese that we will ever taste from Be'eri. Happily, Dagan, the other partner, was partnered up with actually a young winemaker from Be'eri that studied in I think in Piedmont or Milano.
In Piedmont, but
So, and now he started producing again cheese. So, but we're still waiting for Dror anyway. I think we should definitely. I mean, within time, we're 26, but we're 3 years old. Okay, so and Eyal has how many vintages behind you?
From 2005. Well,
I don't know, 17?
So cool.
Something like that.
I have
17.
13, so we're a young winery with old history and some experience. And part of it is, yes, and understanding that maybe Layam should be released a bit later on. Because the aging period within the winery for us is, I think, is good. I mean, we don't want to.
It's the right.
No, the change is crazy from 21 to 22.
Yes.
Like,
vintage variation, but
obviously, but I'm saying like,
yes.
No, but also, you
much
can
more
live,
luscious. Like it's opened up.
איך היית אומר luscious בעברית?
It's a word in English. It's enjoyable, maybe in a very
In general,
sensual, taste-wise way.
It's really delicious.
I mean, I think it's more integrated for sure. I will say in general for Hebrew, this isn't a problem solving for your listeners. The Hebrew vocabulary of wine is not, I feel like it's not fully developed yet.
As rich as in English.
Even if you just go like, there's a sweetness and dryness. So in sweetness and dryness in English, you got off dry, semi-dry, semi-sweet, off, right? In Hebrew, you just have matok, sweet, yavesh, dry, and chatzi yavesh, which is the whole middle category.
I have to defend the Hebrew now because we're big Hebrew lovers.
Obviously, if you're the
Vine growing, winemaking.
I can tell that.
Vine growing, winemaking wise, Hebrew is much richer than English. You know why?
turn.
Because we only missed like the consumer's part. 2,000 years ago, you had a lot of vine growers here, and they called each part of the vine in a different name according to the season. Okay, so a shoot changes his name in Hebrew according to the seasons. Okay, we say
Steel?
no. A shoot is like the sarig when it's
Sarig
green.
and Zmora.
Okay.
And then it becomes a zmora when it gets brown in the winter. So you prune the zmora, not the
I
sarig.
didn't know that.
And you dilute, איך אומרים מדלל? Dilute the shoot, it's דילול סריגים when it's green, but you prune the zmora, you prune the shoot when it becomes brown. And so on. So yeah, we were lacking some terms in wine consumption, that's true.
Yeah.
Wine connoisseurism, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Descriptions
It's
of
new
wine.
for us.
We'll get there.
So
This is what?
this is a Syrah, 100% Syrah from 2014.
Wow.
The plot that goes into Layam later on versions. But this is a wine specially produced for a German client, an Israeli loving German client by Shoki, without the Mourvèdre, only Syrah. So we've tasted only blends so far. This is only the Syrah. I think it exemplifies the vineyard more. Although it's kind of a hotter version, but
Yeah, it's for
this is, by the way, the old label of Layam. This is
This is the same label as the Layam.
yeah,
The 13.
100% Syrah.
the AOP.
AOP is what?
Let's talk about an idea, okay?
So
and then the
it's
wine.
OP.
EOP.
EOP.
Okay.
What
So
is
now
EOP?
you'll discover that the love of language is not just for Hebrew.
Yes.
And it's this is Shuki's, okay? So
One of his
EOP
best quotes on the back.
is Greek.
It's Greek.
It's a metaphor
It's from the Iliada. It's
by Homeros. Epi oinopa ponton.
Oyonopa.
A
I
sea,
always forget.
a sea as dark as wine. It's a Greek metaphor, which Shoki really liked. Shoki had his education in Vienna. Okay, he lived abroad, Vienna, Mexico, and he had to memorize the Iliada when he was there. And this is one of the opening episodes. So he wanted to produce a wine which will be as dark as sea, or a sea as dark as wine, whatever. He made it out of 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. And now we haven't produced any EOPs since. But Eyal has like in his pocket
An idea.
an idea.
Yeah, so you told
It
me.
doesn't have to be Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
It can
It's
be.
not going to be.
I think.
Yeah. No, I just want to say that Shoki did it twice, just
Twice.
two times at the EOP. The first vintage was 2006, and I have in my memory the exact the exact taste of this barrel.
Yeah, don't worry.
It was one barrel of Merlot, 100% Merlot, 2006.
Oh, really?
It was, and still remember it, one of the best wines I ever tasted in my life. Obviously, it was almost 20 years ago, but he did it this twice. He did it just because it was really a unique barrel. In this case, it was 3 barrels, but a very unique material that he decided to put aside. And so I have an idea also. Obviously, I really wanted to do that for the 25th anniversary of our winery, but it wasn't. It didn't justify it. But I guess that is going to be one in the first vintage of our vineyard.
Yeah.
Because I have something in mind, and normally the first vintage of a young vine is one of the best.
Sure. Youthful, like vibrant.
There's something about the balance inside the plant that
First
after the
children.
Ola and the first vintage is the last thing that we're going to taste.
Yeah.
It's actually the Ela.
Ela Eretz Israelit and Ela Tamastik. You see these fruits?
Yes.
Ela is always, it's not planted, it always resides near oaks. Alon ve'ela usually live together, some symbiotic, in the Mediterranean slopes. So they're part of our choresh, like a forest.
You got me. I don't know.
Forest,
yeah,
but
it's a word that we have-
Forest is more than forest.
Forest is a...
Forest is like it's indigenous.
terroir.
It's an indigenous or local.
It's not a high forest, it's a low forest. The choresh.
Forest.
Choresh is a low forest.
Yes.
It's not the eucalyptus, it's the trees that are like up to 4 meters, 5 meters, very Mediterranean forest. So it also started as part of our counting the stocks.
Yeah.
When we came in, we found 3 barrels of rosé, Morvet, which Eyal, as a consultant to Shoki 6 years ago, told him, it's okay, but it's not enough.
It wasn't
wine.
good enough
It's
to
not good
enter
enough
to the
enter
final
blend.
blend of the rosé.
Just keep it aside and we'll see what we'll do with it. 6 years after, we come in as partners and we find these 3 barrels.
Polish.
So we find these 3 barrels, and or 2 barrels, and I say to Eyal, let's distill it like moonshine. We have a barrel here with some brandy that has been lying there for a couple of years, and he says, no, I have an idea. So he goes out to forage on Tu B'Shvat, and
Actually, in Rosh Hashanah and Tu B'Shvat.
and he
So
comes
it's both,
back
yeah.
with this basket of all kinds of local herbs growing all around the Ela Valley, which is like 2 kilometers from here. He fortifies the wine with some alcohol. This is 15.5. It's still wine,
How much?
fortified and spiced.
What was the fortified? The fortified you put in was how high?
The
alcohol.
percentage, I had 2 tanks.
Yeah.
The one for the resins from the Ela tree, and the leaves are under 70%.
70%.
And the other tank for the flowers, especially for the shkedia,
Yeah.
by the way, Tu B'Shvat,
Yeah.
it was 25%,
Wow.
so lower.
So
Because
it wasn't like you were fortifying it with like 95% alcohol or what have you.
no, what we send our it's also the gefet, but also some it's not leftovers, but like the mishkaim, how do you say, like
Sediments.
Like it's kind of like the sediments of the must. We send it for distillation in Hollander distillery, if you know.
They make liqueurs.
Okay.
Hollander.
That's the alcohol. He
alcohol-
was asking about the percentages.
Yeah, but the origin
The
of the
idea
alcohol.
is not fortifying by adding alcohol straight, but the alcohol, the fortification actually, the alcohol is being used to macerate the flowers and the plants.
Very
that he's-
cool.
It's a tool for extract.
cool.
Yeah,
Very
for
cool.
macerating.
And then he adds the macerations into the wine.
Into the wine.
You will see them.
And he has all kinds of like the plastic barrels or other kind of barrels that every barrel has its own batch of flowers or herbs, from flowers to orange peels. Everything is forged around here. And the cool thing about it is that this is how it started. Now it's a different product. We took a rosé, which was nice but not fresh enough. And Eyal actually expressed our region through a different product, which is not wine. It's more like a vermouth. But you get the flowers and the herbs of the area in a specific season here.
Yeah. So the idea for the Ela, for me, is to take the local thicket, local herbs, it's the smell and the taste of this place.
The terroir.
And to put it in a glass.
I get a comment from Americans sometimes, like throughout the years, which always hits me. And they say, whenever I get down of the plane or when I get here, you guys don't realize, but there's a different smell here. Rather than back home, wherever they live in. Right? They come down and they say, the smell here, and it's the smell of the terroir.
So
And I
Simon
think
told
this
us
is
yesterday.
the smell.
Yeah.
This is Simon Jacob again, your host of today's episode of the Kosher Terroir. I have a personal request. No matter where you are or where you live, please take a moment to pray for our soldiers' safety and the safe and rapid return of our hostages. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Kosher Terroir. It was exciting and informative for me as well. Please subscribe via your podcast provider to be informed of our new episodes as they are released. If you're new to the Kosher Terroir, please check out our many past episodes.